And we are back! Welcome to No Direction Beyond, the Starfinder news, reviews, and interviews podcast brought to you by the friends you know and trust at the No Direction Network. I'm one of your hosts, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I am joined by...
Alexander Agunas, the Everyman Gamer.
And also...
And James Ballard.
Excellent. We are here to talk about all things Starfinder and to bring you the latest, the greatest, and our opinions on all such things here on No Direction. Well, this is an exciting time. Starfinder has just launched. We're launching our podcast, and it seems to have been going phenomenally if the sales charts are any indication, especially by the fact that I can't find it anywhere for any of my players that are wanting it. So, let's do some introductions. Now, everybody knows me that has listened to No Direction. I'm also one of the regular co-hosts of No Direction Prime. Alexander Agunas is our regular host and blogger from The Private Sanctuary. And James is our becoming frequent guest on lots of our shows and now permanent co-host of No Direction Beyond. Alex, tell us why you're here and why you like Starfinder or don't.
Well, I feel like my reason is probably going to tie into a lot with James. Stop me if I'm hitting yours. James and I actually were part of the original closed playtest for Starfinder, so we've been playing with the rules for a while now, and even throughout the early renditions of the playtest, we were like, there's something pretty cool about this game, and the ways that it's similar but also different from our usual jam, which is Pathfinder. So I'm really excited to keep going into the future with this brand new game. What about you, James?
Well, it's a personal life goal to die in space, and that might be unattainable, but this is a game that allows me to do that in a safe, controlled environment. In a way that my family doesn't get angry at me for. I feel like it combines some of the better technical parts of Pathfinder with more open and loose rule sets, so it's a lot of fun.
Can I ask a serious question, James?
Yeah.
Is your aspirations to die in space so that your friends and loved ones can wishes on your exploding ashes?
Right. I'll become a comet. I won't ever die. I'll always be in space.
Oh, it's great. I'm so excited. There's so many jokes we get to use on a Starfinder podcast that we can't use in fantasy. It's great.
It gives us ultimate freedom, which is one of the things I love about Starfinder most. And I'm here because I make the technology work. Plus, I have been probably squealing about Starfinder since its announcement, especially since I got my hands on it for the first time at last Gen Con and saw how fun space battles and starships and lasers being mixed in my fantasy is going to be. So, we are here. We also are filming live on twitch.tv/no direction if you want to catch us live. Our regular schedule for this show is yet to be determined. We need to work out when that works best for the rest of us, but we definitely wanted to hit it up this week because we promised you a review of the Starfinder core rulebook. We didn't tell you at the time that was going to be the launch of our new show. We will get that. We'll be announcing that on our Facebook page. We'll be announcing when shows start on our main page at nodirectionpodcast.com. So go there if you want to catch up on what we're doing and what we're going to. But we will eventually have a very regular schedule, and you'll be able to tune in by instinct. Now, because we are live, we have a live chat. Hello, chat. You all are going nuts already. But because this is a live chat, we want to hear your thoughts, your opinions, and most importantly, your questions. That helps this content go so much smoother. If you've got a question about Starfinder, about our opinions of it, or just about anything in general, just go ahead and pop that up in chat. Periodically, we will be picking questions out from that as much as we can. Sorry if we miss one or two. And then answering them on the show. Now, so, we've just come back from Gen Con. Gen Con has been a little bit crazy this year. It was the 50th anniversary. And by just come back, I mean about 2 weeks ago, and we've already got podcast seminars going. But this is the first time a lot of us are going to get to talk about this. Except for me, I got to talk about it a little bit ago when I was dying horribly of con plague. But now I'm not dying of con plague. So how was your Gen Con?
Contagion.
Oh.
Contagion. Contagion.
Oh, no. And I thought with Brian gone, we would have no more dad jokes.
You were wrong!
Oh, for those of you wondering where Ryan is, don't worry, Ryan is safe and sound back on No Direction, which will be resuming a normal schedule. They have kindly ceded this week to us so that we could have room to shine here, and No Direction will begin its regular broadcasting schedule next week on the 12th. On Wednesday. So from that point forward, No Direction will be back on schedule and we will have some fun there. Nothing to announce on the episode there because we are still trying to scrape that stuff together. But we have some exciting plans and guests that don't necessarily line up with the ones you expect from us. Now, we will be having regular guests on this show. Don't worry. We hope to get the best, the brightest, the coolest, and mostly the nerdiest to join us.
Yeah.
So, James...
Yes.
You're the one with the least amount of soapbox so far. So how was your Gen Con?
Oh, it was great. It was crowded. I've never been to a convention that crowded, so that took some getting used to. But I had a bunch of great games. I jammed one of the specials. I did some table jamming, and I got to play some BattleTech in pods.
Yes.
Beat you though, Param. You're too good at that.
I've been living and breathing Mech Warrior for the past 2 years, and I'm sorry, man.
It's okay.
The thing that James isn't telling you guys is that he lives and breathes this game.
Mm-hmm.
It's really dope.
It's true.
Yeah, James got in here on enthusiasm alone.
Tell them how many of the new Starfinder scenarios you've played.
Oh.
Tell them how many of them you've GM'd now.
I've GM'd, I think, 2 of them now.
Yeah,
1 or 2 of them.
That's just shy of half of them. James lives and breathes this game. He is the endless fountain of hype that keeps the warp thrusters of No Direction Beyond running. That is his job. He's going to be excited about everything and everybody.
It's cool to get it on the ground floor because I started Society a little late, but I already eaten through scenarios there, so I expect this trend to continue.
That's true, yeah. It is kind of cool to be in something as it's happening. I also think it's really cool to see how things are different from how they launched Pathfinder into Starfinder, and I really like so far. I think Starfinder overall shows that Paizo as a publishing company has learned a lot of lessons from how they handled Pathfinder, and I feel like throughout this review we're going to be like, oh yeah, they did this way better than when they tried it back in the core rulebook for Pathfinder or whatever.
Yeah. And it's super weird.
Yeah, go ahead. It's fine.
It's super weird for me because, I imagine all of us were there for the launch of Pathfinder, and I was there documenting it, as part of journalistic, how do you say? Anyway, I was there pressing this stuff. I was covering the launch, and we have recorded materials that go all the way back to those early days. And going back and listening to those early materials and comparing them side by side to what's going here, there's a lot of deja vu, and there's a whole lot of, well, they did this differently this time.
Yeah, definitely. Wow, we actually have a whole bunch of people chatting at us in chat already.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a question.
Let's see. Darren Caldemeyer asks, were any of you surprised at the lack of a player's guide for the Dead Sons AP?
Yes and no.
Yeah, I felt like... I haven't read much of Dead Sons yet. I own it. I haven't read it. But I feel like a lot of the setup is in the core rulebook for this one. I almost feel like there's an entire chapter that's almost like a player's guide in its own weird way.
Yeah, and that works reciprocally. The articles in the Dead Sons books are so important to Pathfinder. I think that messaging needs to get out there more, is that the AP line is so much more important to Starfinder because they're putting so much more of what would traditionally be published in a player's companion, the softcover line, in the back matter of these APs. So the Absalom Station details in Dead Sons right now are the most authoritative article we have on that. So even if you're not interested in the AP, if you want to know about one of the most important features of the campaign setting, you've got to pick that up, which is going to be hard because that thing is sold out harder than Christmas.
Dude, that's why I tackled somebody for mine at Gen Con. I mean, that's not true at all. I said to my friend, yo, look, I see there's 2 copies left. Grab one and bring it to me, please. And he was like, okay. And he handed it to me, and I bought it. It was great. I even gave my money directly to Eric Mona.
Yeah. And I totally think there should have been a player's guide, but why I'm not surprised is it looked like a whole lot of Starfinder was coming in being built. They were putting the tracks in front of the cart the entire time.
Yeah,
It's possible.
And as far as most players guides, at least for Pathfinder APs, they're filled with a bunch of options to make your characters fit into that part of the world, where the Dead Suns AP just starts at the world's beginning, kind of. So it kind of fits in.
Yeah. Also, like, you know, the player's guide usually, like, so the original player's guide way back for Rise of the Rune Lords, one of the big things they did is they introduced the traits mechanic. And, you know, Rise of the Rune Lords was the first game where, we have these cool traits that give you role-playing powers. And I feel like themes cover that. So unless you were going to print, like, a unique theme or two just revolving around your adventure path, like, I don't really know what you would put into the player's guide that the players would need that isn't in the core rulebook. But, again, that's just sort of my feeling on it. Overall, I feel like the core rulebook is it's very well put together, though. So I think that if you just hand a GM the core rulebook and the adventure, I feel like they can put enough together with those two to do it.
Yeah, and we will definitely come more details on that particular point when we get into the review here in a couple of minutes. I just want to hit a couple more of these questions before we go into the thick of the content, which is going to be the Starfinder core rulebook review. One of the questions is Ryan officially not a host of this podcast? Ryan is officially not a host of this podcast. His interest in Starfinder is yet to be measured. Now, whether or not Boss Costello wants to come on this podcast is up to him. I don't think I can legally keep him off of it, nor would we want to. But as of this, the official hosting crew of this podcast is myself, Alex, and James.
I tried to convince Big Boss, but he was on the fence.
We just need to convince him of the ways and the splendor that is the Starfinder.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that you can like more than one thing. You can like two different flavors of ice cream. It's okay. Sometimes I want pistachio, and sometimes I want star pistachio.
Oh, you dork.
Oh.
That's why you have me here.
Yeah.
Oh.
I know you can't argue with that. So let's review this book.
All right, let's get into it. Now, before we get started, the people reviewing this book is going to be myself and James. Alex, why can't you review this book?
Because I have an authorship credit in it. You know, it's like you write 3 spreads in a book, and all of a sudden you're a biased source or whatever.
Yes. Do not believe his biased lies.
I mean, all of my statements will be biased, but they're very, very much truthful. Don't listen to Perrin, people. Although, just to get it out of the way, the things that I worked on are Chapter 7. I did the technological items, the magic items, the hybrid items, and about half of the other purchases.
So, while Alex will be providing color commentary, he will keep his judgmental opinions to himself for the duration. We will then turn the leash off of him, and he can totally just go nuts.
I'm going nuts from the get-go. You can't stop me, Param. No. I have waited 8 months, 9 months to go off the leash. You cannot stop me. No one can stop me now. Salama Shalanore.
Whereas mine and James' fanboyism just simply stems, and our bias stems from just pure fanboyism. All right, so let's start off. Let's look. The Starfinder core rulebook. This is the giant beast of a book. It is rather thick. At 567 pages is the official page count? 532. Yeah, because it's just shy of the Pathfinder core rulebook. It weighs heavier than the Pathfinder core rulebook. I found that out, and I thought that was weird, which means that I think which I think attributes to the fact they've got more ink on the page. So the presentation of this book is your typical RPG that normally doesn't come from a thing that rhymes or has alliterative names, such as Dungeons and Dragons, or derivatives of, such as Pathfinder, even though it is a derivative. This, like most RPGs, has a campaign setting in it, as well as character creation rules and combat rules. No bestiary. There's like a couple of example monsters, and that's it. And one of the example monsters is like the biggest, meanest goblin that's ever walked the face of this planet, or any other planet.
That's okay. He's going to die in a couple rounds when that giant crack on his spaceship takes him.
Yeah. The layout of this book, it looks phenomenal just for the presentation. The art is amazing. It's you can tell that it's Pathfinder art, but they've grunged it up. They've sort of got this 80s sci-fi aesthetic that they're going for throughout the entirety of the Starfinder universe. I mean, even if you look at the logo, their original logo looked pretty modern, glowy blue tech when they did the original announcement, but their final logo, I mean, this thing looks like it came off a cyberpunk novel.
It looks so cool. I miss the 80s future. I realize I'm going to have like an iRobot future, and that makes me real sad.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if we were going to have a dystopian future, which we were going to have anyway, I kind of wish that it was stylized, where we could have freaking hot pants and disco balls.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, everybody dies in Akira, so it doesn't happen in iRobot.
Well, almost everybody dies in Akira. Almost everybody.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much everybody. One thing I have to say about the art is like even if you go as far as to like appreciate the page borders and the page layouts and how things are colored in this book is really impressive. Like, the book has a really clean, crisp feel to it that is very clearly designed to make you look at it and to help you use your eyes to figure out where things are, rather than like actually like reading like, oh look, that darker blue is always for the cover. It's also got thicker text. I know that that's a H1 heading. Or, oh wow, look, I have this really bright blue sci-fi spread for my opening text box. Like, the book is very subtly color coded, and it's really helpful when you're trying to reference stuff. I think like that's one of my favorite elements of this book's design, is that it's just very clearly there to help you. Like, every aspect of this book's layout is there to try to make your life referencing it easier.
Now, that is something that they took an obvious lesson from when they were doing the strategy guide and the beginner's box, because that language
absolutely.
that we talked about when we were talking about those products when they were coming out over on No Direction absolutely presents here. You've got iconography that shows, like, is this a technomancer spell? Is this a mystic spell? Is this a first level ability? Is this fifth level ability? There are lots of little graphical details and notations and lots of layout work done to communicate the rules as much as the text does, which is something that the original Pathfinder core rulebook famously did not do at all. It's the reason the RPG strategy guide and the beginner's box exists in the first place. When you open up a race, it has or a class, it has the major stats in huge graphically stylized letters across the top banner. Let me pull one of those up so you can see here. Like, here's the mechanic. This is the mechanics layout page. I mean, it looks like a video game character sheet intro. And they obviously took a lot of inspiration from video games and the presentations therein, which they talked about when they were doing the strategy guide in the beginner's box. So I'm glad they're going forward with that.
I feel like not trying to keep themselves stuck in that old parchment look they have going in Pathfinder books really helped. Like, I never realized how much I appreciated reading black text on a white background until I got this book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that sounds really dumb, but
especially just like on each page they have each of the different chapters, and it gives a red highlight on which one you're in, so at least you know if you're too far or too close, or before, after. I like that a lot.
And then like and so like that's on the left hand side. Perrin, can you show them with your book?
Yeah, what do you want to see?
Show them the sidebar that shows the chapters on any other pages. So like you have this really cool sidebar that shows you which chapter you're in, like James said. But then if you look at the bottom left hand side, if you can show them that one, Perrin, there's a little red box that tells you which section in your current chapter you're in too. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's at the bottom of the right hand page, not the left hand page. But yeah, like this book is designed to tell you where you are in it and to make referencing as easy as possible. So like if you're in the tactical rules chapter and you're looking for senses, well, if you're in the senses section, it'll say senses at the bottom. So you just keep thumbing through until you find what you're looking for, which means like it doesn't sound like it would be much different from looking at the header, but it really can make a big difference. And I really applaud this book for its artistic and graphic designing layout. I think that this is I think this style is going to be the golden example going in the future. I don't even think 5th edition organizes itself as well as this book does. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Param, but like,
No, I mean, 4th edition did probably better organization than 5th edition does, and I think this is above 4th edition's work by a fair margin. This is lessons learned through decades of doing layout and teaching RPGs. Now, sadly, some of the lessons are not present. The really cool presentations of how to play the game that they did for the beginner box and role playing strategy guides, they didn't do here, but that's likely because of space concerns. Because they had to cram a lot of material in this massive beast of a book. So what would have taken 20 pages in the beginner's guide, they have to do in what is your pretty traditional introduction to role-playing that's on par with about every other game in the industry.
Yeah, and this more has to do with like rules layout, but as opposed to the Pathfinder rulebook, the core rulebook, where you might be looking at a skill or a disability or a topic and have to reference other pages without knowing that you have to reference them. Starfinder is very clear when it goes, this is this condition. Conditions are on page this. Like, looking up the rules for blindness and darkness in the Pathfinder Cool Rulebook are like being blind for a very small period of time, because they take forever to find out.
Man. Oh, yeah, because they're spread out between like 3 different rules text and a blog in Pathfinder.
They're spread out between the spell, they're spread out between the condition, and they're spread out between the darkness rules.
Yes, and then there's a blog trying to clarify them.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness, yeah. And eventually, and I have a hard time judging and comparing on that front between the Pathfinder book and this one, because I have decades of experience with that rule system at this point, where I have sort of memorized and know the general layouts of those books like as second nature. So it's a little bit unfair of me to compare how easy it is for me to grab info from a game that I've spent, 17, 18 years now, if we count all the way back to 3 days playing.
I mean, it's okay. Nobody's ever read the Pathfinder Cool Rulebook. You just skim what you need at the time.
Oh, no.
You have?
I've read that book cover to cover on launch.
You are the only person we've ever met who's ever actually done it, Param.
And I've also read the beta. Man, this is what we do. We've got to do it.
I didn't know Detect Magic was a 3-round spell.
Yeah. You've got your first is the binary yes, no. Second lets you hone in on where it is, and third gives you the details.
The spell section is 3 times as big as the Starfinder spell section.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
Gonna miss
it is insane. That's we talked about how it was laid out and how pretty it is, and that is all very well and good. But what matters most is how good of a game this thing is. So that's where we need to dig down. It is your tradition. This is still based on the Pathfinder rule system, if heavily modified or moderately modified, depending on your opinion on how modified this is. I'm leaning towards moderate heavy. I thought when I did my first read through, I thought it was worse than it was at the table when we played it, but significantly modified, more than the initial sales pitch, for sure. But they did update that message rather quickly later on. So where should we start on that?
James, can I tell them the story about your horrible scorpion monster?
Yeah, tell them about the broken scorpion centaur.
Yeah, so when we were way back in doing the playtest, this was back when they were still advertising that this game was fairly backwards compatible with Pathfinder, and there was like a short little rules for how to use Pathfinder monsters in the game. James had us fight this. I can't even remember what they're called, but they're
Girl Tableau.
There you go, Girl Tableau. They're like scorpion centaurs from Irisin or Syrian. And we had to fight one in a death battle arena, and if we lost, we were going to get composted. And so the monster was at our CR plus 3, and we thought the math was the same. No, it turns out that being CR plus 3 in Starfinder is like brutally powerful and difficult and challenging. It's not like, I still have an okay chance, like maybe a 50-50. Like, no, the odds were never in your favor if you're fighting a CR plus 3. Go ahead.
The thing had a poison, and its save DC on Fortitude is 27, based on how that worked. I think we were doing 16th level. We were doing pretty high there. It
We
was
were
still an under 50% chance of success for those
we
characters.
we were 11th level because Matt had just gotten the spell hack that let him do a supercharged weapon at will.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So like it was like CR 14 and we were like CR 11 and like it demolished us. Like my brother was playing a mystic, he got this poison injected into him and like I just like seeing that made it clear to me that like if you take a Pathfinder class or a Pathfinder character or a Pathfinder monster and put it in Starfinder, it's basically a superhero. Like it's the equivalent of giving it mythic tiers. It's really strong, specifically offense-wise. I imagine the AC might be a little bit lower. I haven't compared numbers too much, but my general advice is don't just port monsters from Pathfinder. It's going to be extremely difficult for your players, unless your players want that level of difficulty, of course.
Yeah, I've heard from some people that fast healing for really low CR encounters is very prohibitive in Starfinder, especially to a very low-level group that has 1d4 laser pistols. Healing 1 or 2 damage a turn can essentially undo 2 rounds of combat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, and it surprised me because when I was originally read through this, you're seeing weapons that deal like 14d12 damage and things like that, and then you turn around and think, and somebody says that, well, the offense of the critters in the bestiary dwarfs the players at that level, and you think, well, how's that possible? But then you realize that Pathfinder monsters were really famous about having damage stats where like it does 1d6 plus 22 damage. Which turns out to be a magnificent amount of d6s if you try to average that out.
Taking a question from the chat, Sindenki asked, would poor saves possibly be the result of poor character builds? Then he goes on to mention how when he made his first Pathfinder character, he would not have been great. So the thing about what we were given in Starfinder is we were given like the bare bones. We had enough feats that we had feats we could pick at every level. And I mean, like, as you guys know, we get into equipment. There's no like magic items that boost your saves or anything. And I don't think anybody dumped any stats. Do you remember, James?
Nope.
Yeah. At the very least, nobody ever dumps Constitution in our group. We've all gone down that road and turned into mulch before. Like, so I don't think saves were the problem as much as the DC. Like, even if we all had great fortitude, I think like we would have had like 13s against its DC 27 poison. That did like a D6 of con drain. Like, yeah, it was just not designed, and it's part of because when you get to high level Pathfinder very quickly devolves into Rocket Tag, where PCs get these quadratically more powerful abilities, and monsters need to be able to match them to challenge them. But because of that, it's pretty much first blood and you're done.
And the expectation in Pathfinder combats are much different from Starfinder combats, where Starfinder combats assume that you're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5 combat rounds by default. Pathfinder is like, you're going to have 1 to 3 combat rounds, and 3 is going a little long.
So that's actually a really good thing to point out. When Starfinder first came out, people were talking about the classes, and I've seen a lot of people bashing the Solarian because of how long it takes to get your Stellar Attunement active. Like, when we did our playtest, and even in games since then, there wasn't a single fight where the Solarian didn't eventually become attuned because they just last longer. Like, fights in general take more time in Starfinder. But I think even... Yeah, go ahead.
But rounds are quicker.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, you need more rounds to beat the thing, but because there's less things you can do, and actions are changed in a way where there's less action stacking, your round goes by faster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But, so I feel like we've talked a lot about playing the game. Let's talk about what's in this book.
Okay, so it opens up... Let's go through it like we do. It opens up with character creation. Starfinder character creation is much more tightly wound than Pathfinder.
Yes.
Basically,
Absolutely.
think about making a Pathfinder Society character. By the way, we're assuming as a baseline that you have some passing familiarity with Pathfinder at this show, just because of our expected audience. But we will do our best to try to make this, as the episodes go on, as new player friendly, because I'm also recognizing that a lot of people are getting into Starfinder as their first game, or from a totally different system. But think of what I want to say is you're not rolling dice anymore as a default assumption. You're not rolling hit points. There's almost no randomness at all to your character builds anymore, which is the tradition in Pathfinder and D&D inspired and Lineage games. Always was about the randomness. And even sci-fi games. Traveler's famous for being a sci-fi game where you can die during character creation. It's so random. But in Starfinder, everything is set in stone based on your choices. You start with every stat is 10. You get 10 points total to buy off that. But that's not like 10-point buy in previous editions. It is a 1-to-1 exchange, no matter how high up you go. You can't go above 18. You can't go above 18 even with racial modifiers. The racial modifiers are set, except for human. They get to pick where their +2 goes, just like Pathfinder. The other races are +2, +2, -2. The Lashunta is, I'm right, the Lashunta is the one that has the racial dimorphism that they get 2 different sub-races that get to pick between strength and intellect as their bonus. Am I getting that right? I think I'm getting that right.
Yeah.
I think that sounds right, yeah.
And then -2 as the offset for all these races. And then you have 2 different stats for your hit points, which are both not random, this is one of the big changes from Pathfinder and D&D Lineage games. You have your normal hit points, which are static based on your race and class. That's a new one. Races give a default hit point bonus. You only get that at first level. At past first level, you don't care about your race's hit points anymore. And then you have stamina, which is based off your constitution bonus and class. And your class gives you a stamina and HP starting values that you add every time you level up. And your constitution bonus applies to your stamina, not your hit points.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is one of the big differences.
I mean, the stamina system's great. I mean, I enjoy it a lot because a lot of times in Pathfinder, when you take hit point damage, it's so final and finite that it does add up over a while with not a variety of options to deal with it. Where in Starfinder, the stamina mechanic is kind of your ability to get hit and keep going, and there's a lot of ways to get that back with low investment.
Yeah, I think of all the times we've played, I've played Starfinder now several sessions, mostly in Society. Of all the games I've played, nobody has bothered to heal hit points except for like between major days. Now I know that that's not going to be the rule of the game. That's going to happen. But in my experience, just so far of long slogs of combat, just restoring the staminas during the rests was usually enough to keep the party going. And while there were some wounds that did get one character a little bit worried after he got to half hit points legitimately, the fact that the stamina kept coming back kept the party moving instead of heading towards the bunk beds.
No, you got lucky. I got like a full Mind Blast at first level. That dropped me right to -3.
Mind Blast is so nasty!
It's so mean.
Yeah, I played the Technomancer pregen in one of the quests, and a worm popped up and destroyed me. I'm pretty sure that GM just wanted me dead, though. Hard. Listen, you can think what you want, James. I am positive that guy killed me.
Okay.
If a GM wants you dead, you're dead. There's nothing you can do about it.
I got knocked unconscious twice in that one quest because the worm would only go after me.
A quest. Those are not supposed to be brutal. Oh,
there's always one that is. There's always one where you have to fight a really high CR thing. It's kind of standard quest formula for Paizo. But anyway, so one of the things I really like about this book goes back into the fact that Starfinder recognizes that unlike Pathfinder, which basically tried to attract a different game's people, Starfinder is like, yo, we're gonna probably have to like introduce our rules to people for the first time. So Chapter 2, character creation, exists, and it is a really well laid out chapter. Mm-hmm. It goes step by step with every step of the process. Like, I don't think that I could have written a blog article that was better than this. This is really top-notch stuff, and like it takes the time to like put in reminders. Like, okay, you've read about what to do. This is what you do on your character sheet. It cross-references different options you have and summarizes them for you, and then it goes on and right there in Chapter 2, it explains a lot of the core statistics that make up your character. So like it talks about ability scores, it goes into health and resolve, it goes into what is, in my opinion, the best description of alignment that has ever existed in a 3.5S game. And then it talks about like what you do when you level up, and we're introduced to themes for the first time. A lot of really important details in a very small chapter. I think Chapter 2 is a good example of just giving the players what they need and putting it in places that are easy to reference.
Chapter 2 is impressive for what they were able to put in here, and it is clear that they robbed some pages to flesh out the Chapter 2, and then in the class sections where they start showing like the big 2-page spreads with the different build options, those also really evoke the strategy guide. I mean, the gamer in me wishes they could have gone the full bore and put like the entire like intro to role playing that this beginner's box and stuff gives. But I guess there's a future not too far away where there's a Starfinder beginner's box. I can see that happening rather quickly. I don't know for sure, but I can totally see that happening. If nothing else, to get the box at like Borders and Kmart. Like that's what the beginner box. That was one of its stealth objectives. But you mentioned something that you mentioned the themes, the character themes. This is something that doesn't exist in Pathfinder. This is something that does exist in 5th editions. Players might be familiar with that edition. You'll see a lot of familiar here. But it sort of like replaces the traits. It's like a catch-all group of bonuses that apply through your whole character's life, because as you level up, they keep giving you bonuses. They don't become irrelevant. That sort of encapsulates your character's background into it. You've got the icon, the ace pilot, you've got the bounty hunter, the mercenary, and each of these come bundled with one of the primary attributes, but it gives a +1 bonus. That +1 bonus is mathematically irrelevant, which I'll go into a spiel on that, but
it is not irrelevant. Ability damage
I agree
is a
with
thing.
James.
It's like, there are some there are some niche circumstances in which that matters, but it is nearly mathematically irrelevant.
Ability score prerequisites in Starfinder are always
prerequisites and ability score damage are the only two places that point will matter in your character's lifetime, which I will go into. But they also come with a set of abilities. Usually it's a type of skill that you get to reduce the penalty on, the DC on, anytime it's related to your background. You get to take 5 off the DC, which I think is a really awkward way to handle that, as opposed to just having a +5 bonus that you can easily math in. But it achieves the same end result. It also will give you a class skill, if you don't have it, that ties into your theme, so you can get Ace Pilot gets piloting as a class skill, and then but if you happen to have it as a class skill already, you're not out of luck. It gives you a +1 bonus that is one of the few bonuses to skills that stack with things.
Yeah, it's true. Stacking is much harder in Starfinder than it is in Pathfinder. Much harder.
Yeah. I mean, you're basically, if you're going to get your biggest bonus to any particular thing, and usually that's going to be it. They made sure that a lot of things give the same type of bonuses in Starfinder. So, the feat gives the same bonus as the class does usually to when it gives bonuses to skill points, which makes for some awkward character decisions while you're leveling up. But it does mean that you don't have crazy builds that are hyper optimized that can like hit +30 DCs at level 1.
Envoy still can.
Oh yeah, the Envoy. We'll get into that. Past that, you actually get into the races and classes, which are the other things you need to do for character creation. There are 7 races and 7 classes, so they line these up so that there is one each. There is a race.
One iconic.
Yeah, there's an iconic for each class that identifies as one of the races. And your races are androids, which are just the Pathfinder androids. Humans, Kasathas, Lashuntas, Shirines, Vesks, and Ysoki. And now I have to explain what those races are, because if I was describing a fantasy game and I said they were elves, dwarves, orcs, giants, and stuff, you got that. But because this is a sci-fi game, there's a lot of made-up names that have to be explained. The androids, I guess nobody needs to explain that. The androids are artificial humanoids put together that have a soul. That is a big deal in Pathfinder that they draw that, or not Pathfinder, in Starfinder that they draw that distinction. Androids have souls. They are alive, sentient beings. They call virtual intelligence is what they call AIs that do not have souls and are not fully sentient and aware. Humans are humans, only they're missing a home now. Oh, well, one of their 2 homes. One of their 3 homes. Because there's Andrus and Earth are probably still around, but then Galarian's gone.
Well, I mean, there's an entire tribe of red-skinned humans that lives on Acton in canon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, like, humanity is just a contagion because they're just going to be everywhere, no matter what you do.
They're the real rats of the universe, not the Ahsoka.
And they are. I mean, the Ahsoka are pretty good at being rats, though.
You got the Kasathas, which are a nomadic race of aliens with 4 arms that totally had a prophecy to come over here, and then they're like, hey, why are these people on our planet?
Well, I mean, they came and they're like, oh yeah, this planet's going to totally be uninhabited. We're just going to live here. Oh crap! Not only are there people here, but man, oh man, they're in an economic down spiral. Let's not go there.
No. Yeah. So they're the most. If I'm giving the common sci-fi reference, these are more like Tali from Mass Effect. What was her race again from Mass Effect?
Quarians.
Yeah, the Quarians. They're kind of like the Quarian analog, except they've got 4 arms, and they always cover their face, but only their mouths. So they got cool.
No, they love fighting. They really love fighting, especially with melee weapons. They're really brutal.
Yeah, and that's great because they can dual wield 2-handers, which is nasty.
Well, I mean, dual wielding isn't a thing in Starfinder, but they can totally have a sword in each of their 4 hands.
Almost not a thing. There's still, there's that 1 feat that gives you a +1 advantage if you're actually dual wielding light weapons.
They're just holding them akimbo.
Yeah. There's the Lashuntas, which are your telepathic, weird mnemonic race. They're ones that
they're your classic alien race. They have little antenna. They do mind things.
Yeah, they're also the one that are dimorphic. They in Pathfinder they strongly hinted that it was sexual dimorphism, but they've changed it up in Starfinder or clarified it, and I think that's going to be retroactively applied to Pathfinder, where it's both sexes that can it's a point in their adolescence where the evolution happens, but they have like the more squat, strong version, and then there's the tall, thin, smarty pants version of these aliens. Then you have the Shreens. These guys, the Shirins.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. It's like Pandaren. Sure.
They are space paladin bug people.
Yeah,
it's the best.
Yeah, like they used to be part of this horrible hive that just devoured everything, and then they broke off because they broke off away from the hive main and discovered individuality, and then became addicted to individuality like a drug, to the where they're choice junkies. That little bit of fluff was interesting, where they there's junkies of the Shirins that will just make trivial choices over and over and over again just to get a euphoric high off of it.
I mean, it's like if the Tyranids found Candy Crush, you know?
Oh, good God. I really like these guys. They're lawful good by their default alignment is lawful good, which is weird.
So, I think it's worth pointing out that, the Shirins you can play as player characters are default lawful good. Mm-hmm. The fact that a hive exists implies that there are Shirins that are not lawful good.
Well, those aren't Shirins anymore. Those are the hive, or whatever they call them in here.
It's the same race. It's just the Shirins are the ones that defective and went free will crazy. You could meet these have them not be lawful good. They would just be mindless drones seeking to rip your face apart, multiple mandibles or whatever.
And filling in the default brute warrior race role is the Vesk. They're giant lizard people that usually have cool T-Rex heads, except for, as James was pointing out, the society lead, who's Iguana Man.
Radsamaran or whatever?
Yeah, he's cool, but he's got an iguana head. They are big. They are mean. They love combat. In fact, combat decides their society, and they kind of came to invade the Pack Worlds, and now they're part of the Pack Worlds.
Not really. The Vesporium is in a tenuous ceasefire. It's not part of the Pact Worlds. Like, it's not a Pact World.
True enough.
It's like NATO versus Warsaw Pact.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like, oh man, we don't want to get destroyed by these bug people. We should just stop fighting and hope they go away.
I love the vests. They're so cool.
And then
except when they look like Anguadas.
And because no RPG is allowed to exist without the short, cute race, we have the Yosoki, which are the rat folk. They do a lot to flavor up their rat folk. The Yosoki are from a planet in which they were well respected, and all the other rat folk in the universe saw that and was like, "I want that," so we all Yosoki now. And it was a very cool bit of backstory. They have some cool racial abilities, including the ability to pack their cheeks full of items, which is where all the flashlights are. And they make great mechanics. They're very flavorful. I kind of really like these guys a lot. I mean, I'm always partial to the short, cute races in games, and I like my mouselings.
My first Starfinder Society character was a Yosoki operative with the Daredevil specialization, so I do sick flips and stab people during them. It's great.
Yeah, I think what set me up to actually enjoy them is seeing that in action. In one of the society scenarios, you talk with your faction leader. One of the factions leader is a Yosoki, and about halfway through a conversation, she just drinks some coffee and then just puts the mug back in her mouth. And then I realized the pragmatic usefulness of that instead of just vomiting equipment on the ground. So,
yes, it is useful. Do you know what else is useful? Having a character class.
Yes. Yeah. Run us through the classes. I've talked too much, Alex.
Okay. Am I allowed to do this, or am I too biased to run us through the classes?
Well, don't believe his biased lies, but at least give us a rundown of the classes.
All right. So, Starfinder has 7 classes, which is roughly half of the number of classes that Pathfinder and traditional fantasy versions of the game has had. Most of the classes look like things we've seen before in fantasy games, but with a futuristic flair. The Envoy is a class that's all about, being good at skills, talking to people, being diplomatic. It's the Princess Leia class, essentially. Yeah. And it has some very strong similarities to the Bard. The Mechanic is sort of like a robot summoner or a guy with a robot in his head, depending on which version of the class you want to play. You get a choice either between 2 different types of AI, either an exocortex that you plug into your brain and boost up your brain's processing, or a drone in control. And
okay, hold up, Alex,
run a sick web.
1 second.
Show.
I'm going to have to take over for you because you were having some connection stutter from you. Sorry.
Oh, no.
All right, so yeah, you've got the Mechanic. They can have the drone or the AI in their head. The drone has 3 different options for there. It can be a stealthy little spy thing. It can be a little bitty tank brute. Or it can be a floaty gun platform. Next up on there. Okay, so let's do this. The Mystic is your space shaman / priest / oracle / the closest thing to space wizard that exists currently. It's a weird amalgamation of a lot of different ideas. But if you want space magic, pure space magic, the Mystic is here. They are also your space psychics, kind of. A little bit too, because a lot of their abilities are like derivative from psychic magic from Pathfinder. So they've got the mind blast, and they've got the telekinesis and the levitation, and they've got the sleep and crowd control, and the hold person and the charminess. That is all in the Mystic. So if you want your space magicians, you can go there.
Town magic.
Mm-hmm. Then you have the Operative, which is your roguish analog or spyish analog. Only the rogue wishes he was the operative. They are the undisputed masters of skills. They have the most skills. They have the best skills. They get bonuses when they focus on skills that let them re-roll their skills checks. They are so integral to the game that one of the game's weapon mechanics is named after them. When your weapon is operative, it means that it can be used with dex. And more importantly, the operative can be used as a trick attack, which is kind of like sneak attack, but not quite sneak attack.
Well, you have to accomplish something before you just get the free bonus.
Yeah. Okay, explain it, James. Explain what is a trick attack.
So a trick attack is a full action where you declare that you're either going to like backflip really cool or hide behind a bunch of stumps or a couple other skills that you can use. You roll a check, and if it's higher than an opponent's rating plus a couple of numbers, you get the benefit of the trick attack. You still have to do the attack and hit, but it allows you to do increased damage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then there is... I'm going to save this one for last, because the Solarian is what would be alphabetically next, but it's the one we have to explain the most. Then you have the Soldier, which is, if you want to deal hit point damage with weapons, they're the go-to class. They are your space fighter. They're very good at their job. They have a few different options on the kind of weapons or attacks they want to specialize in. And they get bonuses to their weapons above and beyond the other classes. They're also one of the few ones that are easy to get into heavy weapons. It's really hard to get into heavy weapons with the other classes, but the Soldier, not hard at all. And then you have the Technomancer, which a lot of people describe this early on as saying it's your space wizard, but it's not really your space wizard. It's like space hacker wizard, but let's take the wizard off of this. This is
like a battle mage.
This is your space magus. If you're linking it to Pathfinder, it's definitely more fighty and more limited. It has more in common with the bard or the magus than it does with a pure wizard. If you want your pure caster wizard experience, go over to Mystic next door, or through third party stuff that we'll let Alex plug later. But the Technomancer is definitely his own thing or her own thing, but it is not space wizard. It is this fighty, hacky, tricky. They do illusions. They're kind of like the best illusionists. They do have the blast spells. They did give them the fireballs and the magic missiles and the area effect damage spells, and the Mystic doesn't get those. But besides illusions and blasting and hacking, that's pretty much the only thing it does. Oh, and buffs weapon damage and technology like crazy. You can get some good damage output from a Technomancer specializing in long arms or sniping, but like I said, this is a very fighty, combat-y, hacky class. This isn't your wizard.
They do get a lot of touch spells as well, and a lot of their progression is like meta magic. So instead of like widen, there's stuff like that as well. But a lot of your progression feats are, hey, I'm going to turn grenades into my spells and have them now affect an area. I'm going to start a blast at the end of this sniper rifle. Bullets impact. So your class progresses into more wizardy things, but as you're playing, it's not going to feel like a wizard.
Right. A lot of the play I've done with my Technomancer has been like, I'm going to take this gun, and then I'm going to magic this gun to be crazy big gun. Or we really need a grenade launcher, but none of us have grenade launchers, so I'm going to magic up a grenade launcher from nowhere, and because I magicked it, I'm automatically proficient in this thing, so we can grenade launch even though we can't grenade launch. So that's been great. If you need your electronic glowy space bazooka from nothingness, they got you covered. If you want to break in and hack things, they've got you covered. And if you want to just completely mess with NPCs by throwing illusions everywhere, they got you covered. But that brings us to
the reason.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Alex.
The reason the Technomancer is so good at illusions is that 90% of the illusions in this game have been reflavored as holograms. Mm-hmm. So the Technomancer gets all of these illusion spells because they're holograms. Right. So they're like, bloom, hologram person, bloom, hologram wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's fun. It's fun. Now we have the Solarian. This is the weirdest one. This is the one that is kind of unique to the game, the one that doesn't really map easily to a previous class or another concept in sci-fi. They are mystical warriors that tap into the primal nature of time and space, and they get to manifest they're kind of like Green Lanterns, in which they get to manifest this power as either a weapon or a really swanky suit of glowy armor. And they also have to constantly balance between light and dark energy to to use these these odd abilities that are like gravitational or energy based, depending on which one they're going to, creation and destruction. It's
Param,
weird.
Yeah, or
can I help you there?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, they're not time and space. They're the life cycle of stars. It's like proton for when it's a star, and graviton for when they collapse into black holes. And their magical space powers are based around either attuning to starlight or attuning to the supermass of a black hole. It's kind of light and dark, but it's really set up to be more neutral. So it's not like you're playing it. Like it gets compared to a Jedi a lot because the Solarian crystal sword works a lot like a lightsaber, but it's really more neutral than that. It's not like if I play a good Solarian, I can never access black hole power.
In fact, you have to. Well, you can.
You have to.
You can differentiate if you hate yourself, but
You literally hate yourself.
But you're supposed to balance your choices between the light and dark options, and the reason, and like you said, this is neutral, but it's like gravity powers versus energy rays.
Yes. You're right. It's a cool class. So we had a Solarian in our home games, and she may not have always have been the most powerful person at the table. She was often doing a lot, but she was always someone whose presence was always felt, if that makes sense. Because every round she was either exploding into fire and burning everybody around her, or creating black holes and pulling them to her like a Death Knight in World of Warcraft. Like every round she just had some crazy power she would activate, and like even if she wasn't topping the damage meters, I'm pretty sure our soldier did more. Like you knew she was there. Like it wasn't just like her abilities where I'm mechanically better behind the screens. She's like, no, I'm mechanically better in your face.
yeah.
Somebody brings up. Let's start talking about the class balance because that's really where the meat of a review of this is going to come from. The Solarian is the only, or one of the worst MAD classes. They're the only class that needs. They're multi-attribute dependent. They need a lot of good attributes to function optimally. Whereas most of the other classes, you can get away with either hyper-focusing on one stat or just splitting between two, which is not too bad. A lot of classes you're going to want Dex because this is a very gun-heavy game, and Dex means good at guns, and guns are very important for all the classes. You can choose to melee specialize, but that's a choice that's beyond the standard assumption in this game. But whereas the Solarian arguably needs 4, but realistically needs 3 stats raised to good levels, which is easier to do in Starfinder by how the character advancement works, but that definitely is one of the unique aspects of the class. It's being proposed that there are really 2 builds for the Solarian right now, 2 meta builds going, which is if you want to focus on your melee weapon, then you want to get heavy armor proficiency and focus on strength, constitution, and charisma as your stats. And if you want to if you want the armor, then instead you want to grab a good gun with long arm proficiency, and then it's Dex, Constitution, Charisma for the stats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. But even then, like, I don't think it's super attribute dependent. I mean, at least, like on my Ratfolk operative, I have a really good Dex, and Dex lets me hit with my gun or my little dagger thing that I've got. Mm-hmm. But it's not like I put all of my points into Dex and just ignored my other stats. I bought an intelligence because, hey, if I have 10 skill points per level, I might as well have an intelligence and have all the skills. Or I also put some in con because, man, oh man, if I'm gonna have a little sword that I need to use sometimes, it would be really helpful if I don't get killed by the monster when it's trying to eat me. So like I don't feel like Starfinder has a hard cap on how high you can make any of your ability scores. So I personally don't feel like MAD is as bad. If the Solarian has a problem, it's that the 2 scores it depends most on don't carry their weight in Starfinder.
Right.
Like as a mechanic, if Dex is my best stat, then oh man, my Dex gives me a better AC and a better reflex bonus. Or if if I'm a mystic, my wisdom gives me a better will. Like the Solarian has Starfinder's two least used stats as its most important ones. Like strength is only for melee weapons and for bulk, and charisma is only for social skills and class features that need charisma.
Right.
So
And its charisma, it doesn't. It also doesn't carry weight in the class, which is where a lot of the complaints are coming from towards this class. Now, to be fair, I think a lot of the complaints are overblown on that, but the charisma affects the DC of its powers, and that's it. That's the only
I'm
mechanical
pretty
benefit
sure
it draws from.
charisma doesn't charisma determine your resolve points for Solarian too?
Yes, because it is your key ability score, but that applies to every class. It has a key ability score that only does one thing for it, which is to give it its DCs, whereas most of the other classes can depend on their key ability score to do a lot more for them.
So rewinding a bit, I don't think we really talked much about resolve.
No.
So resolve is another new mechanic in Starfinder if you're a Pathfinder player that you've probably never seen before. Resolve is weird. I have very mixed feelings about it personally. On one hand, Resolve is super cool because it basically every class in the game uses Resolve as a singular point of pools that they all pull from. So like gone are the days where your multi-class Magus Monk has a pool of arcane points and a pool of key points and some other pool from some other feat or archetype. Like everything in Starfinder pulls from Resolve. And that's good for the game because it simplifies resources to the point where it's a lot easier to balance things against one another. But the other side of Resolve that makes it a little more difficult is that if you're knocked unconscious, you hit 0 hit points and you're dying, your Resolve starts ticking down like a timer. Every round you lose a Resolve instead of taking negative hit points. There are no negative hit points in Starfinder. And because of that mechanic, you are split between, do I want to spend my Resolve to do the cool thing, or do I want to make sure I have 5 Resolve points if I get knocked down so I don't die? Because spending Resolve is the only way you can not die in Starfinder. Like, it's how you stabilize. So when someone says this is my key ability score and it determines my resolve is a big deal because all you get is your key ability score plus 1 every 2 levels essentially. So at least if someone says that my key ability score doesn't matter, like I feel like that inherently matters because if you get knocked out, your key ability score is how long you can wait and last before you die.
And it is, you need your key ability score. You cannot ignore it because of how it plays into the resolve mechanic. You have to have resolve or you're dead. This is, and I think a lot of this is because a lot of people's first exposure to the Solarian was the iconic Solarian, which, I'm going to be brutal honest on this thing. That thing is built terribly. It's got a 12 in its charisma, which means it starts the game with 2 resolve points, and its stats are all over the place. I think if they had focused it more on its ability, it would have a lot more people being exposed to Starfinder for the first time and grabbing the Solarian Pregen would have a higher respect for the class than they do when they're talking about it, because it's a terrible introduction to the class to see this thing that is performing rather not to what the class could perform at. But the point is that the charisma is, of course, its key ability score. You cannot afford to ignore it. You need your DCs for your abilities to be high enough to matter. You need those resolve points. But whereas the other classes can draw on it for bonus spells and skill points, or it's something that applies to either the like dexterity that applies to like the general game, or they have other mechanics that to make their key ability score matter to them specifically, giving them bonuses and rolls and stuff. Whereas this one it doesn't. Which is why I guess what is the focus. It's not quite as bad because of how Starfinder does its stat advancement. You are able to keep a lot more of your stats competitive than you can in Pathfinder, because at level 5, not level 4, but level 5, you pick 4 of your stats to go up. And they go up by 2 if they're 16 or under, or 1 if they're 17 or higher. So that leads to the meta a lot in this game of starting with 16s in your best scores, and then upping a whole bunch of scores by a bunch when you hit those 5, 10, 15 levels. And then the stat increasing enhancements are also cheaper at the low end, though you can only have 3 of them at any given time. So it's easy to buff up
No,
your
that's
score.
not true.
You
You
can't
can
just-
only have one of each model.
Right.
Period. So like the Model 1 is at like really low.
Mhm.
And then Model 2 is at like 7th level. So at 7th level you can have 2, 1 out of 4 and 1 out of 2. And then the last one isn't until 14th level.
Right.
So you're basically stuck with 2 for over half of the game. Like, and even then, the other 2 that you have are not going to be the full +6. Like, it's not like Pathfinder where you can get a magic item that gives you 6 to everything.
Right.
Like,
Well, nobody can afford
Starfinder.
that item. The 6 to everything
sometimes
one.
they drop it in adventure paths, but you're right for the most part.
Yeah, the last boss will drop one. It's like killing Karzug in Rise of the Rune Lords. The loot is amazing. You're never going to use it.
This is true.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Oh, you broke the spoiler rule.
Oh, the spoiler rule that the dude on the cover of the adventure path is the last boss of the adventure path that he's named after, and that he drops cool loot. That's not much of a spoiler.
Well, also resolve and dying, it's not as penalizing as it seems. You only ever spend a quarter to stabilize, and you just lose 1 each turn. A quarter rounding up. So, like,
So I don't
you're never
know
usually...
if Starfinder is deadlier than Pathfinder or not. I keep going back and forth on that.
That's one of the best parts to resolve, is it makes you balance your abilities, because you use them to make your abilities better in a lot of classes, versus you surviving. So it's kind of, here's my inevitable pool of, am I going to try to blitz it and just try to get all I can out of my performance to make sure we don't go down? Or am I going to hedge my bets that we are going to attrition this down and save my points for later? I think it's fun.
I actually don't think it's fun. It's one of the things I don't like about the system. I think that it will lead many people into option paralysis, which is never a fun feeling. Because ultimately, the choice of whether or not you spend resolve to stabilize or not probably isn't going to matter very much, because in the long run, whether you decide to come up or decide not to come up, ultimately the outcome of any D20 roll is luck and probability. But you're going to be sitting there and thinking about, like, oh man, should I have not gone up? You know, maybe I should have not blown those 4 resolve points on that encounter and saved them for later and just let the party mystic heal me up instead and have spent less. Or, you know, like, I just think that when choices are that down to the wire, they're not necessarily fun, especially when one of the options is you just die. Like, I it's one of the things I really don't like about the resolve system, and if they just left it an action pool like in Savage Worlds, I think it would have been better. I don't know where they would have put room for negative hit points or a different mechanic, so you got me. But it is one of the things that I don't like about
It's a small
the system.
section in even Pathfinder. They could have in the space they went explaining how you die when you're resolved. They could have easily put the entirety of the negative hit points and dying rules in that same section. But I think that this is mostly going to lead to the resolve determining the pace of the adventures. But whereas in Pathfinder, you're going to retire or try to withdraw from dangerous encounters when your spellcasters are low on spells, instead, especially the healers. In Starfinder, it's just going to be, well, if our resolves are getting low, that's when we're going to pull out. Because I don't think too many people are going to want to push on into encounters when they're below the I'm going to die threshold.
And that's sort of like the other thing. It sort of puts the players at odds with each other. Where, like, you know, if I'm playing with James and James's strategy is to blitz resolve because James doesn't really care about it. He's like, why hold on to something? I'm going to use it now and hope that everything dies. That's a very
All the
James
time.
play style. Yeah, very James play style.
I use all my hero points on skill checks.
Yeah, and so like we get to the end, and like I have most of my resolve, and James has burned most of his, and so then now like this would never happen with James because James is very good about lying in the bed he made, but for other people it would be like oh man, I got a rest. I blew all of my points in the 15-minute adventuring day. And then the other person's like, well, I saved all of my points and held on to them, assuming we'd be going on longer. And then you sort of have this inter-player conflict and play styles where one person's choice might render another person's choice to save those points invalid because the person blew through all of them and like was going through. Now, I mean, like if you have a good gaming group, obviously you guys will talk tactics and decide it. But if you're doing something like Starfinder Society, that might not be a option that you have. Right. So again, this is just my opinion on the mechanic. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's awful, but I do think that long term it's a mechanic that will cause conflict for some groups. Probably not James in my group, but some groups.
Now, I play with a hero point mechanic that was inspired by Monty Cook's hero point mechanic from the 3 days. So it's not the ones presented in the Advanced Player's Guide. It's a bit more. It's honestly a bit more like this Resolve, where the mechanic both lets you be awesome and saves your bacon. So that the usual play for my players in such a system is they always hang on to that last chip.
Yeah.
Oh, but I have some players that just love to spend early. And then I have run into the problem where I've had a player that loves to spend early and then try to guilt the party into resting. And that was something as a GM I nipped in the bud right quick. I was like, listen, you're not allowed to ruin their fun just because you wanted to show off. Also, I see this from the point of view as a GM because I'm primarily a GM when I play any of these games. So the concept of the players deciding when their rest makes me laugh because no, you all get to rest when I decide you get to rest because I'm going to be the one that's keeping those freaking goblin space pirates banging at the edge of your hatch door until you go deal with them.
Yeah, that's fair. So I really want to talk about archetypes because they're cool.
Okay,
but I kind of think. Should we talk more about like?
We need to talk more about the class balance.
Yeah, that's
the
what
class
I was
balance in Starfinder is a lot closer to balanced than Pathfinder. There are, in my opinion, some issues that I hope time will fix as more and more content gets released. The classes that are in the best place right now: Soldier, Operative's probably the star class of the game right now. They do all the skill monkeys. They've got really good high damage. We talked about the Solarian have some problems with their build, but they actually perform very well. They're currently, if you are theory crafting, have the highest damage output of any other class. If you go the weapon route and then abuse it like crazy. They're also the easiest class to keep up on the weapon chart because of how their powers boost their damage. The Envoy's in a good place. The Mystic is in a good place. The classes that are falling behind are the Technomancer and the Mechanic.
Oh, Mechanic.
And the reason the Mechanic falls behind is if you pick the chip in your brain mechanic, you're not behind. You can keep up with most of the other classes and grab your good guns and use your feats and enjoy all the benefits of having an imaginary best friend. But when you're relying on that robot, you've got a couple of things that kind of hold you back a little bit that I kind of expect to change. Like I expect all of these things to get addressed as more content comes out for these games. The mechanics problem with the robots is they're paper mache. They only have they die real quick. They die real quick in real spectacular ways. And while they can bring it back, that usually means a pattern I've seen is the robot dies in the first or second encounter of the day. There will be a new robot tomorrow, but that means that the mechanic has lost most of his options or most of what made him special for the rest of the adventuring day. And also, because of it almost looks like they were afraid of Summoner when they were designing the mechanic. So the mechanic's robots only has some limited autonomy, and then the rest of it has to be given actions from the mechanic in order to control it and do more things with it. So the mechanic is often just sitting back and controlling his robot, and that is this primary playstyle, which would be fine if the robot was as strong as a summon or an animal companion, but it's not. It kind of dies real quick, and it's not as strong. Um, so they need to buff. They just need some more options there to make life easier for the mechanic or make that robot stronger to keep up with the other classes.
So I'm gonna interject. I think the mechanic is just in a bad place. Period.
Oh, really?
Speaking as somebody who played an exomechanic Cortec at level, gosh, I did it at 1st, 7th, and 14th level, and so the exomechanic. The Exo Cortex mechanics problem is that it wants really bad to be good at dealing damage, but it's not. It gets long arm proficiency and weapon specialization with long arms, which basically weapon specialization in Pathfinder and Starfinder is you add half of your total character level to the damage dealt with a weapon group that you choose with weapon specialization. Mm-hmm. And every class gives you weapon specialization as a bonus feat with every type of weapon that class is proficient with. Mm-hmm. So part of being an Exocortex mechanic is you get free proficiency with long arms from your class, and that automatically gives you weapon specialization with long arms at 3rd level. So like it sounds like you would be doing a lot of damage and would be super cool and awesome. You're really not, because the soldier has fighting styles and bonus feats that back that up. And the operative has either more attacks than any character in the game if they full attack, or they have trick attack, which basically lets one attack effectively keep up with a full attack if you make a relatively difficult skill check. The mechanic has none of those things. Its damage is not very competitive if you're Exocortex, and you need to spend a move action each turn in order to focus your Exocortex on other people. And it doesn't have a trick attack mechanic to make up for the fact that it's not doing full attacks each round. And it doesn't have multiple attacks like a soldier would during a full attack. So all in all, it is just not as good at damage as either the soldier or the operative, which would be fine if the Exocortex mechanic had another niche, and it doesn't. Excuse me. The operative is much better at skills than the mechanic is. The soldier is way brawnier and more survivable than the mechanic is, and none of the mechanic tricks are really combat focused. Half of the class is focused on hacking and computery stuff. So you have this class that has all of these very disparate abilities that don't really work together well to make a character that is good at a specific point in the game. Like, the envoy is great at skills. You know, when you go into combat as an envoy, your job is to buff the party. You're not going to be as good at fighting. You know that when you're a soldier, you're not going to be as good at skills, but when you're in a brawl, you are going to take that dragon down, and you are going to put him on your mantle. And the mechanic has a bunch of these small, like, utilities that don't ever come together to build anything bigger. And I think that's a problem that spreads both into the drone and the Exocortex. And really, it's not a problem that's unfixable. We just need some more options in mechanic tricks. And this is my opinion. Mm-hmm. But it is an opinion that is informed with many hours of playtesting and theory crafting and building characters.
The problem with the mechanic and a little bit of the problems with the Technomancer are the fact that the operative exists. It's sort of too good at being the skill monkey that any other niche, like, it can be the best mechanic on your ship, it can be the best science officer on your ship, it can be both of those things simultaneously. And the fact that the operative is just the best at every skill, it's basically the best at anything but combat, but by the way, it's also awesome at combat, is the reason that it kind of throws the game balance off a bit. It's just too good of a class that covers too many things at once. The Envoy can kind of keep up because of its class abilities, and it also has like a lot of party buffing and mid-combat strategy-based things. And the other classes all have specific niches or gimmicks that sort of keep the operative from just stealing all their thunder. But with the mechanic, it was such a non-combat focused thing that it needed to be good at. The fact that the operative is just better at it in every way when it comes to non-combat hurts it. Ditto with, you would think the Technomancer would be the best space hacker, and that's only true if you're abusing the spell system a lot to do magic space hacking, because even with all the bonuses the Technomancer gets to space hacking, the Operative's a better space hacker, just skill point wise.
And so that comes from several different changes to the Starfinder system that all have the same homogeneous effect on skills. So Starfinder has fewer skills than Pathfinder. Many skills were condensed into single skills. Starfinder also has all of the classes generally have more skill ranks, and the Operative was designed to make sure that it has more skill ranks than basically everyone by giving it a base of 10 plus intelligence. But the downside of that is that there's only about, I think it's 20 skills in Starfinder. Does that sound about right?
I think it might be a little less. I think it might be 18.
Yeah, all right. There's like 18 skills in Starfinder, and without an intelligence, your Operative gets 10 of them, a rank in 10 of them. So like, when we were doing a lot of our games, there would be like everybody could roll to do the one thing. So in terms of skills, Starfinder is a game where don't expect to feel special with the skills you have. Like, if you want to be special, put ranks in profession, because that's the things that nobody else is going to have. It's not a great tip, but it's kind of true.
And the game...
Go ahead.
The game's going to encourage everybody to go heavy in skills or pick a diverse set of skills because of space combat and how that interacts with the skill system. There's like a natural incentive to at least a few of the skills to make sure you have at least a good rating in one or two of them, so that you can fulfill your Star Trek bridge crew role when it comes time to do that.
And so I want to iterate that I'm not entirely sure that what we're saying is bad. I think in a class design wise, it makes the Operative too good than anything else that is supposed to have a skill focus. I don't think the Operative is better than the Soldier, and I don't think they're better than the Solarian or any of the Spellcasters. I think those guys are all pretty good. And I actually think the Envoy is an amazingly strong class. Like, its class abilities are insane. If you look at the Envoy as somebody who shoots a gun, you're not looking at the Envoy. I hate to say it.
No.
But, yeah. But, like, I'll never forget at our first Gen Con game, James, do you remember that guy who like gave you the biggest grin in the world when you did your song on your Android?
Yeah, just giving hit points back or stamina points back, and people are like, "Wait, you can help people?"
Yeah. Yeah, like Envoy is the only character class in the game that can heal stamina. Like, the Mystic can do hit points, but only Envoy gets stamina. They also get some of the craziest buffs I've ever seen. They have an ability where they can be like, "Friend, take a move action." They have an ability where they'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to bluff you, but instead of you being flat-footed to me, you take penalties against all of my allies." And then everybody stares at that one little guy with their guns pointing at him, and he's like, "Oh no!" The Envoy is really strong, and then eventually a lot of those actions change to become actions that like moves and standards, and you can combine talents and abilities so that you're using like two of your crazy buff abilities, and most of them don't require resolve. You can just do them, and you're like, all right.
Resolve usually just boosts them to make them better.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of classes have this mechanic that you've seen in the Swashbuckler and in the Gunslinger, where it's not. It's like, as long as you still have resolve, this still functions. And a lot of them do have kickers too, where it does this, but if you want to kick in a resolve, then it does this much more. And that's very common. And I like that a lot of the design there is standardized, and a lot of the language is standardized, so that it makes it very easy to read through these abilities and understand what they do. But that does resolve into situations where we were talking about that you have, unless your class has a lot of these things that differentiate it, then it's not going to really compete here. And that's the mechanic's biggest problem. Is it needed I think two of the classes, that the mechanic and the Technomancer, both needed their specialization. The computers on the Technomancer and the engineering on the mechanic needed to have class of kickers that made them better than the Operative at those very specific thing, and only that very specific thing.
I'm going to iterate on you further. The mechanic just needed engineering powers, period. Half of the stuff they do is computers. Like, like I get that software and computer engineers are things, but like when you look at all the artwork and the promotional work, the Envoy is building robots and carrying like giant wrenches and stuff. Like that to me, like they should have abilities that do cool stuff with engineering. And I think that that's an area the mechanic has plenty of room for expansion in. But before we move on talking about anything else, James, Cryptwalker76 in chat wants to know what I meant when I said that you sang your song.
Oh, so yeah, I play an Envoy, and I play an Envoy at 2nd level now. Their abilities have different components. Some of them are sound-based. So I decided to make a pop idol out of an android, and I sing to people to give them those songs, because that's just fun and goofy, and I like it a lot. So
it's very fun and very goofy.
I liked it.
It's cool. It's fun, and I kind of laughed my rear off when you told me about your character and who it was based off of. So I strongly support. And the Envoy is a very strong class because it can have access to all of those things. Now, I said that the Technomancer needed some love too. It's nowhere near as bad as the mechanic is. The Technomancer has some good builds for it. It can do its job. It just needs some more spells. Both the spellcasters need more spells. The Technomancer needs more spells, more varied options for what it does, because it basically does exactly 3 things with its magic. I computer R better, I make illusion, or I make thing explode.
Yeah, like I kind of feel like the Technomancer, like when they were divvying up spells and they're like, all right, let's spread these out. I kind of feel like the Technomancer got the short end of the wizard spell list, and like everything you'd really want on a wizard and a cleric and a psychic went to the mystic, and the Technomancer was sort of left with this really gimmicky spell list.
It needs love.
I wish it does. It definitely needs love.
Well, they have a lot of computer-based magic, and they also have, I think, the majority of the touch spells in game. To deal damage. So their list is suited to what I think they're supposed to do. They're not really reality benders as much as the Mystic is.
And now we need to talk about the sameness of the classes. And now, not individual balance, but because Starfinder is a very gun-focused game, the equipment section is very gun-focused on this equipment. Now, you can be a melee. Melee is a valid option in this game. It is a viable option. It has a higher damage output than your ranged characters on average, if you just look at this weapon stats side by side. So I'm not saying that the melee is a problem. But besides being a melee character, which is going to be a niche role, you're going to be a soldier, or you're going to be a Solarian, probably, if you're going to focus on melee, because they can do that well. But most of the classes use guns. And because long arms are so significantly better than small arms, unless you're an operative, if you're an operative, small arms are your gravy. And they're great. But if you're not an operative, you pretty much either are trying to rely on your spells like the Mystic, or the Technomancer can try it too, to be your primary source of damage output for combat, or you're going to try to upgrade into long arms, get the feats, which is easily possible. But this leads to a whole lot of people going for long arms, or trying to stick it with small arms. But a whole lot of the game is focused on, I use my gun. My gun.
Yeah.
The whole game is about, I have this gun to get a better gun. The gun play becomes so ubiquitous across the whole system, it leads to a lot of sameness in both character builds and character designs and gameplay, to where the class abilities sometimes come into play but a lot of the times the round-around combat is 4 different people both do attack actions, and it's all shooting the same handful of guns.
Go ahead, Ox.
I mean, when we did our games, Tom had his really awesome mortar shooter who wrecked stuff. Like, I think it's a heavy weapon, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
he had the bombard.
So, I mean, like, it's one of the ways the soldier really stands out, because they have access to all of these crazy different weapons that nobody else really takes. So, I don't know if this is the answer you want from me, James, but my answer is that I feel like the fact that everybody has guns and uses them makes it feel more futuristic, honestly. Just because in a sci-fi science fantasy setting, like, weapons are mass-produced. So at least to me, it makes sense that everybody has guns and everybody's abilities are about taking advantage of this technical innovation, which is to take a projectile and shoot it at people. Um,
Yeah.
I I don't know if it's necessarily a problem. I think part of it comes from the fact that we have this item level mechanic where, for the most part, if you have multiple, basically every piece of equipment in the game has a level. And the level is the minimum level you need to be in order to purchase the item from an arms dealer. If you manage to find one lower, then it's fine. But if you want to either craft it yourself or purchase it from an arms dealer, you need to have that item level requirement. And so generally, it's assumed that your characters are going to be using weapons of around their level, maybe a little bit lower. And with that in mind, since pretty much every weapon type is divided up based on the type of type of damage it does, which falls into one of two categories, which plays into another one of those big changes that Param talked about. Armor class is now two statistics: kinetic armor class and energy armor class. Any weapon that does physical damage, bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing, goes against your kinetic AC, and anything that does energy damage goes against your energy AC, your EAC. And because of that, there needs to be weapons for each type that are able to go against all of those, and usually that fit in each weapon category. So you generally have every caster is, or not every caster, every person who is making weapons is like, oh, well, I need to have the sonic weapon for level 5. I need to have the electricity weapon for level 5. So there's a lot of different weapons, but they tend to all occupy very specific niches. There's not a whole lot of these are all bludgeoning rifles that do different things.
Yeah.
Go ahead, James.
And because they don't have weapons, the chart doesn't have a weapon of each type at every level or every other level. There's big 5-level skips. I mean, there's only 4 sniper rifles in the game. It's 1, 5, 10, 15. And so because there's not basically they need 10 times as many guns if they're going to focus on the gun game, because then you can focus on I'm doing the energy, or I'm getting the shotgun so I have a spray, or I'm doing bombardment so I need area. So at least the gunplay has some fun into it, and only the soldier gets to play in that space right now, whereas most people, you need to pick the very specific type of gun they're going to go for and then hyper focus on it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, you can always have a good variety of weapons. There's really nothing that makes you can't use other ones except proficiency. And also, some weapons have really weird rules, like laser weapons.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Native.
Literally, James is so hype about this system. This is the only thing that he's ever told me that annoys him. Go, James, please. Let me eat my spectral popcorn.
So, laser weapons, which you saw on Akaton, Shobo Hads have them. They get concealment going through dust, light dust, which is a red planet thing, so why does that matter? And they can't hit invisible creatures. Light can't hit invisible creatures. Does light not hit glass? It's mind-boggling. They're usually higher damage than the other ones at their level. But, man, you're going to have to throw that gun in the trash a lot of the time if you're not in another situation. But
it's so funny, because they don't work on the planet they were invented on in canon.
They also have the disadvantage that most of the laser guns deal fire damage, and because it's so easy to get energy resistances of various types in the game, the one you're going to want the most is fire resistance, just like Pathfinder. That kind of negates a lot of the fun coolness of the laser guns too.
Yeah, so you're going to want to switch out weapons, and even if you're not a good fighter, there are still 8 another style abilities like suppressive fire and harrying, Harying, that can at least help other people hit. So you are still acting, and it becomes a more gunfighty thing. Also, there's no penalties for fighting people that are shooting at people that are in melee, like there were in Pathfinder. So you're free to just go blast away, except when you get an AOP, but small potatoes.
Generally, Starfinder makes a lot of design choices built around the idea that you shouldn't need to pick between melee and ranged as much as you do in Pathfinder. Like, precise shot isn't a thing. There's no cover for shooting through allies, if I remember right. Stuff like that.
Cryptwalker got the correction that I just want to call out because I was wrong. There are 5 sniper rifles at levels 2, 8, 13, 16, and 20. instead of one.
It's not significantly more than what you thought.
Yeah, yeah. There's still not enough. This is just another area where the game took a bit of a suffering because of they tried to put so much into the book. That is something that I hope expands in the event that they start putting out splat books that have. I mean, a splat book full of equipment's going to happen with this game, assuming that it doesn't tank and burn.
Well, I mean, for those in-betweens, like if you're giving sniper rifles as kind of a benchmark for something that doesn't have enough, that's where weapon fusions would come into it, give your weapon something else.
Oh,
James, why don't you take the lead on weapon fusions?
Sure.
Oh, weapon fusions are basically like your weapon enhancements from Pathfinder. They are
the seals. The seals.
Oh yeah, they make God. What is that? I haven't looked at them too hard because I can't afford them yet. But I did see what they do, how they change the item level, and they change the abilities of your weapons. There's a lot of them are your classics, your axiomatic, your flaming, your lawful, your mercifuls, things that you can tag on there. There is different costs associated with buttons that do it and with actually building it into the weapon. Some of them at a more expensive rate are just buttons that you can take off one weapon and put onto another. So if you like the flaming bit, you can just pop it off, pop it on another weapon. It still takes some time to attune. Or you can just hard bake it for a smaller price, but when that weapon goes away, you lose your investment. But now, it's neat. It's kind of keeping your investment from your enhancement.
Except I wish it worked that way.
Uh-huh.
That's the pitch, but it's not the reality.
Do tell.
Okay, so the weapon special abilities are very they reduce the number of them. There is so like there's the one flaming that converts all of your not all. It converts half of the weapon's damage to fire. It doesn't add a d6 of fire like you expect from Pathfinder because the damage math is different in this game. It converts half the damage to fire, and if your weapon is already half damaged, like say it's a cryo gun or something, you get to pick which half gets to substitute for fire. And then on crit, it does a cool thing. It does a burn. And then a lot of the weapons that do the elemental things do stuff like that. The axiomatic and all that also works like that, where it doesn't add anything to it, it just does a convert. And then there is the weapon seals that do allow you to take that enchantment and put it on another weapon. But they tie into the level system with the enchantment so that the same fire that you put on your level 1 gun is trivially expensive compared to the exact same ability that you put on your level 10 gun, and you have to pay that much increased price to put that on the level 10 gun. And you can only each of the enchantments do have a minimum level that they can go on, so a level 7 enchantment has to go on level 7 or higher. But it costs the same no matter what enchantment it is. The level 2 fire is going to be the same as level 7, I forget which one. But they're going to cost a lot of credits to get that enchantment. The seals cost 10% more and can be transferable, but they will not work on a higher level gun than they were created for. So you take that level 8 fire that you love so much, and you try to put it on your brand new pistol that you just pulled off a Merc, but it won't work anymore because it just doesn't latch on. So you end up having to buy the enchantment anyway.
Yeah, I'm looking through though. Like the cost of the scaling of these enhancements aren't as expensive as they are in Pathfinder, relatively. Not in the least. Like for Pathfinder, a level 1 enhancement on a weapon's 2,000 gold, which is like your first 4 games if you're doing Society as a measure, or your first level or first 2 levels in an AP. For a first level weapon infusion, it's 120 credits. Mm-hmm. A Society scenario will earn you between 540 and 740. Mm-hmm. So the costs are much reduced.
But the concept of I pull it off this gun because it's a seal and put it on there is defeated by the fact that you're going to keep upgrading your guns and levels, so that lower level seal's just not going to work anymore.
It will eventually conk out, but I mean, you just buy a higher seal than you need, or that you need.
Because they're cheap enough that you can usually afford them.
Yeah, I like the system.
I like the system. I find a hitch there where I think they would have been better off with set costs for the abilities and then just let them work on guns of that level and higher. I think that would have been... I would have preferred that system. But it is a better system than the Pathfinder system in general, because the Pathfinder system, basically, you got one enchantment because you had to keep playing, because you couldn't afford to give up on chasing the +1/+2s in order to compete with the math of Pathfinder. So you ended up just getting 1 or 2 enchantments on top of that, or really usually just the one, and then everything else was just. And with this one, you can mix and match, though mixing and matching is double the cost because you have to pay for because the way it works is if you have a level 10 gun, all the mods can add up to 10. So you can put 3 level 2s on it, or a level 2 and a level 7, but you have to pay. But they all cost as much as if you were putting on 3 of that max level, 3 level 10s on it. So it makes it more possible. It gives you more options, but it also doesn't. The upgradability is a little bit diminished because you have to either overbuy or find a high-end one, or more than likely how this is going to work is you're going to find the loot gun, and oh well, I don't want this gun because I do not happen to like exogen bazookas, but I'm going to take that fire enchantment off of it, and that seems to be where that's going to play into more so than taking your favorite enchantment. This game also doesn't value hanging on to your equipment. You're going to need to be chasing the tier as part of the core mechanic. You're going to be trading out your guns for the next gun, for the next gun, for the next gun throughout your entire career of your character. So one of the options it's going to need that Pathfinder allows for by letting you upgrade your gear. You can't really upgrade your guns. So you're going to. It doesn't allow for the Han Solo blaster, or this is my daddy's rifle that I'm going to keep for the rest of my character's life and just keep making it better. I imagine this is something that'll be solved in the future book, but as it stands, your loot is kind of. This is more Diablo. You're going to be throwing away equipment and grabbing new equipment constantly.
It's like Borderlands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a lot like Borderlands. You're right. This whole gun system and armor system and everything is just like Borderlands. Now we're running really long, so we need to.
Yeah. We
need to book it.
All right. Let's do some power throughs. One of the cool things in this game is that the Big Six has basically been destroyed in favor of a system of augmentations. Mm-hmm. Augmentations go on specific body parts. So you're like, hey, I'm going to wear this. I'm going to get this cyber augment that changes my hands into claws, and it applies to my hands, so now I can't have any more augments on my hands. It's left as being very freeform. You can pretty much do whatever you want as long as your GM's cool with it, and you can find an upgrade for that specific body part. The exception to this is called personal upgrades, which is a mechanic that's separated from regular augmentations. That's basically ability score boosters. They don't count towards your normal slots. You have magic items. You can wear, I think it's 3 magic items is the number, right? The number is 3. 3 is what the number shall be.
That sounds good. I actually didn't look up a limit for them.
Yeah, I think it's 3. I'm not sure.
I can
anyway,
look it up if you want to keep going.
I think it might be 3, but whatever it is it's fine. Then you also have hybrid items, which are a hybrid of magic and technology. Those are like the really cool, but also way to retrain, which is completely reprogramming your brain in a night. It has vehicle rules that look like they're inspired from Ultimate Combat, but are a little bit more streamlined. There's also rules for computers. Right now, computers actually don't have rules for crafting them, which is interesting, but what are you going to do? I guess that Technomancer doesn't really need to build his own computer, right? Right?
Right. Oh, so magic items, you are limited to 2 at once.
2. All right, gotcha. The magic items, there's a lot of things that are classic. There's a lot of things that aren't classic. It is what it is. Take it through, enjoy it, and then have fun. Then you also have Starship Combat, which I think James is way more qualified to talk about than I am.
Starship Combat uses, I saw something really earlier about the X-Wing facing and everything. It uses also, the system's also in Mechton, where it's for every distance you can do turning, everything has a maneuver skill, kind of like the fly skill and rules, but done in a much better way. It's done on a flat plane. It assumes that you have enough vertical height within those hexes to go over ships, so it doesn't worry about 3-dimensional movement, which would make me have a seizure on that table. But in general, they're pretty fun. The big thing is people get, for what I've seen and having it played it and run it, is people get overwhelmed at the options. What can I do? What can I do? Is this the best? Once you start just rolling dice, it starts getting fun. And the rounds are actually a lot quicker once you start doing it. Like I ran a scenario on Tuesday where the first round was about 15 minutes, and then by by the end of the fight, about an hour later, it was a longer combat. The rounds were taking maybe a minute and a half. So it's one of the things, once you get into it, you get good at it.
Definitely. Yeah. Then it's got Starship combat, which is fun. There's basic stats for actually flying the ships.
We can't fly past Starship combat. We got to stop here.
Oh, Mr. World First here.
I kind of think we should, Param.
Okay. Well, we need to at least describe what it is. Starship combat is where Starship combat happens as a separate tactical layer than your traditional grid combat. It takes place on a hex grid. You have a starship. Each of the members of the party are assumed to be flying the same boat right now. There are rules for fighter craft, but they're not fleshed out yet. Emphasis on yet because it's one of the things they constantly say that, yes, of course, they're going to make rules to support, wing squadrons, etc., in the future. But right now, the rules assume you have a spaceship as a crew. You take on roles on that spaceship. You use your skills to do them. This is where your skill rolls happen. A lot of your class abilities turn off here. That's a little bit I don't like. But you take on each. That takes a play with the series of phases, where going last is better almost always, and it plays kind of like X-Wing, where you're trying to predict what your opponent is going to do because you commit to your actions before they execute. And other than that, it's a major part of the game, so you expect to spend a significant amount of time getting your Captain Kirk on.
Oh, it's a mad game of tiddlywinks. The higher you roll, you go last. If you roll low, you go first, and that was very confusing for a little while for some players.
I don't know if it's a major, but it's a major part of the fantasy and the genre. I think that's a better statement than saying, because you could play a game of Starfinder and never once do Starship combat. It's possible. But I do think that for the feel that the game is going for, it's crucial.
Yeah, they promoted it as such a big part of the rules and the core assumption of it that it's going to continue to be a part of the game that's going to receive a significant amount of print material.
They promote all of their subsystems as being a huge part of the game, and most of them don't see use outside of the book they're printed.
There's two scenarios that already have it in it.
I was going to say that I'm pretty sure Starship Combat will not be that way. But, I think that it's worth noting that, yes, this is a core assumption for what the world plays like and probably how adventure paths and scenarios will be run. But I also don't think that if you want to play a game with no Starship Combat, I don't think it's going to hurt you.
Sydney KY asks, or Sidney KY asks, is it possible to play an entire game of Starfinder using only Starship combat?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can totally do that. It's not quite as fleshed out as the rest of the game, because it's mostly just you using these skills, and your level ups are just basically going to be my skills get one better constantly, and you do unlock more options that you're able to do, but also by upgrading your ship, it gets harder. There's some of the math is broken here. I'm just going to flat out say the math in some of the tier difficulties is just flat out broken and needs an errata. They've
admitted much in the rulebook.
Yeah. So they're going to need to fix that. I expect to see that fixed in future printings. But you can totally do it if you wanted to. It'd be about the equivalent of playing a game of BattleTech as an RPG in which you only ever fight in your robots and you never fight on ground. But the default assumption of the game is that you're going to spend some of your time in your spaceship and most of your time out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get a game mastering chapter that is pretty typical of every game mastering chapter going. Oh wait, first then there's magic and spells.
Rules.
Oh, I skipped no, I didn't. We skipped tactical rules on the way to starships.
Yeah. Going over it quickly, Tactical Rules is basically the entire combat chapter of the Pathfinder core rulebook. It tells you how to take actions in combat. I guess you could use it outside of combat too. It talks about injury and death and whatnot, and special abilities. A great spread on senses. It's where the vehicle tactical rules for chases are and stuff. But generally speaking, it's that sort of stuff. It tells you about how actions work, and there are a number of big changes from Pathfinder.
Reactions.
Yeah. So free actions are like codified much better they are in Pathfinder. Attacks of opportunity and immediate actions got turned into reactions, and reactions aren't bound to swift actions the way the immediate action is to a swift action in Pathfinder. The 5-foot step is an action now. It takes a move action called a guarded step. So there's not just like 5 feet of shuffling all around the board every turn. It talks a lot of... Yeah, there's no more conga line. It talks a lot about the different bonus types, and if you look at Starfinder's bonuses, there are much fewer bonuses in Starfinder than there are in Pathfinder. Things like alchemy and luck I guess no luck is still on it, but things like alchemy are just flat out gone. And basically, it's a chapter that you should read through, and no matter how much the three of us sit here and talk about it, we're not gonna hit everything, because it's just a rules-dense chapter, and frankly, if you're playing Starfinder, you need to read it in order to understand how to play the game. Would you guys concur with that?
Yeah. Another one of the big differences we do need to call out is the fact that iterative attacks are gone.
Yes, they are. To be fair, the word iterative attack never appears in the core rulebook, but there is no concept of taking a penalty for another attack in Starfinder.
Well, there is, but it's codified.
In classes.
You get one attack usually as a standard action. That's the default assumption. Every character can choose to take 2 attacks at -4 each to their attacks. They can do that straight from level 1 without any abilities or feat investments whatsoever. There is a feat that lets you get that down to -3 as long as you're actually dual wielding. That's why I said dual wielding kind of pseudo exists still. And there are some class abilities that do make that easier, and then some class abilities give you more attacks when you do that. But the whole standardized stat block of that every class got, where I've got +6/+1 or +11/+6/+1 base attacks, that's gone, and it's much simpler. It also promotes more active movement because oftentimes, because those second attacks are so inaccurate, it's often more viable to move and hit, get cover. Oh, also the default math of the game totally assumes that you're taking cover when you're a ranged attacker, either going prone or taking cover. If you're not doing that and standing out in the open, you're going to get hit a lot and you're going to die. So get to cover.
Yeah. It also changes how cover works based on who's closest, who gets the benefit, which I think is smart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Also, no more reach distinctions. It's all reach.
Yeah. So none of that whole choking up on your staff, and yeah, all reach is reach, which is good because that's the way it should have been.
Yes.
Indeed. Yeah, he's asking, is cover the same? James, go into how cover's different.
Cover's different in that an item just doesn't give cover. It's a benefit to the person or object or creature that's closest to it. So if there's 2 people equidistant from a wall, nobody really gets cover. It's kind of canceled out. But if one person's closer, they get the benefit of the cover because it's easier to shoot somebody farther away from cover. The line of sighting still works the same as before, though, so it's pretty easy to figure out.
You're going to want to read the entire tactical chapter, and
right.
Because there are some like little niggling differences that are easy to miss, such as charging is still mostly charging, except now it gives you a -2 to hit instead of a +2 to hit.
Yep.
Which is weird to see that.
No, it makes perfect sense.
It makes sense.
You're already,
but it's weird to see such a change in a rule that manner.
Well, I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, it's a full action to take 2 move actions and a standard action. I think the penalty is warranted because in Pathfinder there's never not a reason to charge if you're more than X feet away from your target, because you get that flat bonus in addition to the movement. I like the fact that charging is a little bit more of a toss-up game. Like, do I get in there fast and maybe miss, or do I take my time and have a better accuracy? And I feel like that's realistic too. If I was running at someone with a sword, waving it around, I don't necessarily know that I would be more accurate than if I was approaching them at a very calm, even pace.
Mm-hmm. So moving on from tactical and starships, there's the magic and spells section, which is mostly just explaining how magic works. The big difference here is there's 2 big differences. One, there's no longer a distinction between arcane, divine, and psychic magic. It's all just magic, and everything else is just flavor that doesn't have a rules codification on it. If you're a mystic, you pull your magic from some outside source, whether it's the secrets of the arcane universe or a god granting you spells, doesn't much matter. It just is how it works. But at the end of the day, it's a magic spell. It's a magic spell. So they simplified that aspect. Also, they got rid of the casting components. So there's no longer a distinction between, do I have verbal, semantic, material? None of that exists anymore. So it makes magic a lot easier. It also makes casting a lot easier. One of the funny things they pointed out is that there's no real way to, short of inflicting an unconscious state on a spellcaster to stop them from spellcasting, because you can wrap them in bindings and bind their mouth off, and still technically they can pull their spells out. Casting is one of the three things that do provoke attacks of opportunity. When he's given the speech, he likes to say that there are exactly three things that cause an attack of opportunity.
I've gotten that speech a lot in our design conversations. Yes,
and making a ranged attack while adjacent to an enemy, casting a spell while adjacent to an enemy, and moving away from a threatened square. That's it. The spellcasting is one of them. If you take damage while you're trying to cast a spell, you fail. That's it. That's how it goes. You don't want to do that next to a hostile. The concentration rolls, casting defense, that's all out the window. It's just, I cast a spell, did I take a hit? Well, bye-bye.
Yeah, but I mean, that's also balanced by the fact that your spellcasters are probably going to have better AC than they do in Pathfinder.
They're totally going to have better AC because they're at the 3/4 BAB. They're only 6-level spellcasters in Starfinder core rulebook, and they're both rather really good at also being in combat. The Technomancer is really good at shooting things, and the Mystic is still really good at making your mind explode. It's a good thing.
So one thing that I'll say is that one thing that I noticed about the magic system that I wasn't really... So I don't know if it's that I wasn't really crazy about it, but the magic rules kind of break the attack of opportunity rules in the sense that, like, when you cast a spell, you provoke an attack of opportunity, and how the attacks of opportunity resolve is based on your role in, like, what you're doing. Like, if someone is doing something defensive, then your attack of opportunity is always after their action. But if they're doing something offensive, it's always before their action.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It makes it so you can't just damage lock a caster.
Yeah. Indeed. Although it did come up with a really funny situation where my brother's Mystic got grappled by a Scorpion, and he was still casting spells.
Because that wasn't in the rules at the time.
Yep, they fixed it since then. That was a really funny situation. Just imagine my poor brother's bug Mystic squirming in a giant Scorpion's arms, mind thrusting it, and the monster couldn't do anything. It was really funny. But so aside from that, magic is pretty similar to what you're used to. The undercasting mechanic from Starfinder made it in. It's a core assumption. It's great. Love it. Basically, some spells have different levels, and when you learn a spell at a higher level, you can cast it at a lower level for different effects. It's cool beans. The chapter takes time to talk about things like revivication, and it gives you a general overview of how spells are listed and described and whatnot. It's, like I said, it's very much similar to those of you who are Pathfinder fans. It's all good. One of the things I like is that they take the time to make little class icons for Technomancers and Mystics. So throughout the spells chapter, you have a little icon next to the spell's name with a number that says, hey, this icon is always for Technomancers. So this icon with a number 4 means this is a 4th level Technomancer spell. It's one of those great ways that they've managed to shorten the spell list descriptions and also add a visual element to make things easier to parse. I really like that about this book.
Yeah, and also they do some fun action economy with certain magic spells where if you use a full action, you get a bigger benefit. I think that's cool.
Yeah, or some spells don't provoke attacks of opportunity, like most healing spells don't. And let me tell you, if you ever bashed healing in Pathfinder, the healing spells in this book are insanely good. Mm-hmm. Like, they are really strong. You should learn one if you're a Mystic, because you won't go wrong.
Now, moving past magic, we have the game mastery chapter, which talks about the rules of running the game and some of the more environmental rules. The same things you expect from the Pathfinder role-playing game here. Not a lot to call out on that chapter. It's well put together. It does its job. Then we have the setting material, where this is what separates Starfinder from Pathfinder, is that it has a baked-in setting that is Pathfinder set thousands of years in the future, the same world, the same, and it focuses most of its setting on the Pact worlds, which is what used to be the Galarian star system, except for Galarian's gone. That's the big mystery, that much like the death of Eridan, they have what's called the gap, which is this period of time that nobody remembers, and all historical information has been removed from. It's a little bit varied from region to region how much they can go back, which is a point in fact with some of the races. Their material goes back further than some of the others. But Galarian's gone. It's safe, the gods say, but they won't tell you anything else about it. It's a little bit contrived, but it's important because it kind of keeps Pathfinder, what happens in Pathfinder, relevant, and it also gives a little impetus on the game moving forward. Absalom Station exists where Galarian used to be. It's this humongous space station that's powered by the Star Zone. It's basically your Babylon 5. It's like all these cultures in this huge space station city. It's the center.
It's your citadel.
Yeah, it's your citadel from Mass Effect. It's neat. Some of the layers are completely abandoned and unexplored. You could have an entire campaign just in Absalom Station if you wanted to easily. And the other conceit is that Triune, the god of technology, shortly after the gap ended, gave the faster than light travel to the Pact worlds and everybody else by creating the drift. His plane of existence, the plane he controls, allows you to enter the drift. Triune control. Sorry about the misgendering there.
Well, I mean, it's
also a trio in one.
Yeah, it's the magneton of guards.
Yeah, and one of those gods, I guess it's spoilers, but one of those gods features prominently in Iron God's adventure path. They have the drift, and by traveling into the drift, which is dangerous. Very, very dangerous.
Very.
It's insanely dangerous. I don't know why anybody does it. You can travel faster than light by going to drift beacons. It allows you to... It's the only way of faster than light travel. Magic can't do it. Only technology can enter the drifts, so their ships have these drift engines. And you can always, if you tune into Absalom Station, one of the conceits of the system is that no matter how far away you are, you can always get back to Absalom in one jump. So that kind of makes campaigning easy because there's always a home to go back to sell your loot when you're done space murder hoboing.
Don't do that.
Each of the pages have a 2-page spread for each of the major planets. The majority of that spread is a point of view from what it looks like on that planet. It has a little picture of the planet in the corner. And I appreciate these point of view shots because more RPG products I need to see what my character sees instead of these above down maps that are really hard to picture what life is like. So I love skidyscapes, I love street views, I love these point of view shots. And then it goes into the gods. There's a new core 20, including the god of evolution and Triune, some of your old favorites.
And friendship.
Yes, and friendship.
It's friendship bug.
Yeah.
I love friendship bug. Then there's also some of your old favorites. Abadar is now a corporation because of course he is, and he's your friendly neighborhood mega corporation. And I mean, I wish we had some more time to go into the setting. It is flavorful. It's what's going to set this game apart from a myriad of other sci-fi games because it has a core setting that you can assume they can write adventures for this. They can publish adventure paths that will complete, and this keeps it from being your generic fantasy game, though because they focus so much on just this little core worlds and a little bit of worlds that are important, like the Viscarium, that means that there's also this whole freaking universe to play in that you can put whatever you want, wherever you want. So because they can hyper detail this one section and make plot lines that are important to the Pact worlds for their adventure paths, and leave most of the universe open to your GM or third parties to fill in and make very cool, flavorful things that won't... This is one of the advantages of being in a sci-fi setting, is you can have crazy world of dinosaur mecha robots ridden by catfolk, and then that absolutely still fits into the Eox, the Pact World planet ruled by the dead, that also have reality shows full of living people.
Party witches.
Party witches in the house tonight. All right, Pathfinder Legacy. Let's go. Let's talk about Pathfinder Legacy. This is a chapter that's all about converting all of your needs to Pathfinder. It gives you tips and advice. It's really fast. It's for the game designers out there and you. Mm-hmm. If you don't care about converting old Pathfinder stuff, you'll never need to use it, except that all of the legacy races and core races in Pathfinder have updates. Dwarf, elf, gnomes, half elves, half orcs, halflings. Dwarves are OP. Everybody be a dwarf.
Yeah.
Do good melee. Do it real good.
Go. They're amazing. Go be a dwarf soldier.
Yeah, get some power armor and a big old freaking electric hammer and go to town.
It's an electric chainsaw buzz cutting dwarven axe. Come on. Gotta be realistic.
It also doubles as a holy avenger.
Yeah, it makes me feel bad because, like, compared to dwarves, I feel like elves got shortchanged. Like, man, poor elves.
I mean, I'm upset about gnomes.
I want to take this one question before we do wrap up. Because
why are you sad about gnomes? Why are you sad about gnomes?
No, I'm excited because I
they're
like to
great.
them.
Yeah, gnomes. They've got dimorphic. They're Feychild and Bleachlings. Also, they're the only small race that has 4 hit points instead of 2.
Go ahead, Param.
Okay, I want to take this question because it really ties into the review of this book, which is from Pook the Destroyer. Question: what do you think of it being setting specific versus setting agnostic? Does it enhance or limit its creativity? I think it was important that it was setting specific. And I'm also was always been of the argument that it was a mistake for Pathfinder to be setting neutral in its rulebooks, because having a core setting gives them an ability to have a message and theme and unifying art and a baseline. Because especially for science fiction, because science fiction, quote unquote, could be everything from just like barely in the future cyberpunk where we have laser pistols instead of normal pistols, but we still have to worry about credit card debt, or far future where we're all energy beings and we've transcended mortality and it's all about our thoughts and going all Star Trek-y related situations. And that's such a huge disparity where anything goes, that by having the Pact Worlds be defined and the technology level and the magic system and the gods being so concrete, at least gives us a baseline that we can deviate from and gives us an average normal that gives it flavor. And so we kind of have an expectation going into this game that we can't have in other looser generic sci-fi settings, because they have to support such a wide array of playstyles and things. But because the Pact Worlds are so localized, it's very easy to just set a campaign that just happens to not be in the Pact Worlds and pay no mind to it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a jungle out there.
It is. And the galaxy is a big place. The universe is a big place. Like, there's no reason why you can't use stuff from your Starfinder course game in your home games. Like, oh man, look, the same hive that's terrorizing the Pact Worlds is gone because now it's terrorizing my campaign setting. Cool. And I think that it sets up this sort of like this expectation to steal and borrow and share between worlds, which I think is cool.
And it's less limiting than a fantasy world is, because the fantasy worlds are limited by the physical limitations of a planet's geography, where you're making changes on that geography that's so limited is likely to have to alter or change slightly if official material that you want to incorporate changes those areas, which means you have to do some work to integrate your original material or your imported third-party material that you don't have to do if that you can count on this star system that never is going to be overwritten. Now, I think that those concerns are usually a little bit overblown, even in fantasy settings where you should feel completely free. But I do understand that some people do worry more about that than others. But I think that Starfinder gets to have its cake and eat it too, because of just the fact that you can just hyperspace drift. You can't use drift in the third-party products because they're keeping that as product identity. But you can just faster FTL your butt, to the other side of the universe, and then have a whole different world with different rules and everything, and just modify what you want.
Oh, right. So then that's the end of the book. We did it.
Yay!
Yay!
It's time to give final
So-
thoughts, and this is the one spot where Alex has to keep quiet because we're giving
All right,
our
but
official
you-
review.
all right,
Then
that's
we're going to
fair.
let you go
I-
after we give the official review.
I will keep quiet. You guys have to limit it to sending length.
Sending.
25 words or less.
I'm just going to go overall.
Nope. Sending length. That's the condition.
Who's boss here?
Dun 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm turning Alex off.
Plus, also, we are 15 minutes over time.
We are.
So,
We got to
go on,
we got to
25
get this done.
25
Okay.
words.
Overall, I think that the book is beautifully laid out. Starfinder is an ambitious, great system, but it has obvious holes that are going to need to be filled.
That was 25.
Book is easy to read, a lot of fun things to do. Androids are dope. You should be an envoy. I'd play. I don't have enough for it. I broke the condition. Well,
No, you
dang
did
it.
better than Param. Param just ignored it and steamrolled over my condition.
Mhm.
He rode the
yeah.
big truck.
Honk, honk.
All right. To answer your question, MG, sending is a spell in Pathfinder that normally only lets you send messages of 25 words or less. So I tried and failed.
magical Twitter.
All right,
I
thank
did.
you all for
Magical
joining us. We're going to have to sign
Fantasy
off here. We're going to sign. Yeah, we had the whole section of our party struggling against Space Ticketmaster as part of a campaign plot. So,
Oh no,
But-
no! We could beat that though.
Oh?
James had a character that was completely designed around like PewDiePie. Tell him about it, James.
Oh, God, I don't want to get into it really late. But
This,
anyway,
hey, for next time. We give them something to worry
sounds
about for the
good.
next episode. Guys, until next time, you can. I screwed up my own tagline. Anyway, until next time, go beyond with no direction.